So after this session, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for our next session on network streaming with GStreamer. We will have with us Mr. Keshav Karunakar, who is the co-founder, vice president, engineering in PathPartner Technology Private. PathPartner is a focused engineering services company working on enabling intelligent systems with products and solutions. Keshav has been more than 2 decades in the entire field with experience, ladies and gentlemen, more than 2 decades it is, from video switcher systems to mobile MMC systems. He was instrumental in developing framework on the very early days of mobile systems. He led the team which developed the framework, which was the contender to be selected in one of the very popular open source mobile OS. He has worked extensively in Microsoft DShow frameworks, GStreamer framework. He led a team which developed complex multi-party video conferencing and video sharing systems across different platforms using GStreamer frameworks. A very, very warm welcome to you, Mr. Keshav. Joining Mr. Keshav is Mr. Adish Kumar, Senior Technical Manager at PathPartner Technology. Over to the both of you, ladies and gentlemen. This is the network streaming with GStreamer session.
Good afternoon, Fatima.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, hope all of you are doing good, taking care from the COVID. And thanks for this opportunity to speak about multimedia frameworks. I'm not able to share my screen. Okay, now I'm able to share. Thanks. So just a minute, set it up.
Sure, sir. We can see your screen now.
You are able to see my slides?
Yes, sir. Your slide is visible.
In the slideshow mode or not?
You could go ahead with the slideshow mode, sir.
Okay, is it okay now?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, good. So, okay, good afternoon, and this is Keshav Karunakar, one of the co-founder of PathPartner. What we do, PathPartner is a service engineering company, product service engineering company, which works on from your product idea, from the hardware till cloud, everything we can do. We take pride in bringing technology solutions for intelligent systems. Intelligent systems are systems which has algorithms or connectivity. That is what we define it. We are in Bangalore headquarters. We have an office in California. If you have camera, you have image, you have video, you want to do algorithms, this is what we do. We have our own solutions for driver monitoring systems. We have done a lot of complex multimedia solution application. I'll tell about it. So when this invitation came to talk about multimedia frameworks, if you know, from morning, there's a power pack of information that you have got it. So what is the value add that we are going to bring it to the audience? I said that I will tell my 20 years of experience how this multimedia framework has progressed where today it is. And in this experience, you are going to learn at different stages if you have a problem statement. And if you're having a device which is very low power to a complex system where you have 30 cameras connecting and you want to do security surveillance camera, I'll give you the complete progression of things, what we have learned in 20 years. I have joined by Adish. Adish is working with me from last 18 years. He has started as a fresher working from multimedia frameworks. He has seen and worked on frameworks from optimizing video playback from 18 FPS to 30 FPS. All such complex things with the sound bars, NVR, DVR, all those experience. So we'll tell the case study what we have handled it. First and foremost, because this audience is always knows about multimedia framework, why you need a multimedia framework? What is use of it? So I'll tell you a story. In our previous organization, we were developing software codecs. Software codecs to do encoding, decoding, and this is year 2000 timeframe. When there was no need for software codecs. Why did we started doing it? Because we had a vision that mobile phone will replace most of the media stuff and people will start consuming audio video on mobile phones. And that time mobile phones were having very low processors. The best processor in year 2002, 2003 was having some 200 megahertz ARM processor on one DSP processor. This is what the best, which you can have camera taking QCIF image and QCIF video, costing around 26,000, 30,000 rupees at that time. So we started developing software codecs, MPEG-4, H.263, your AMR, ABSC, QKL, PBRC, whatever name it, MIDI, all such things. And mobile was progressing very fast. MP3 was the first one to get adopted after the first ringtone to play. So when we developed this codecs, we were, because there was no standard APIs on that time, and the platform itself is very low end. No big companies investing in making a standard frameworks. So we started developing codecs. Codec has very simple APIs. What is video codec? If it is encoder, it will have create encoder, encode and delete. If it is decoder, it is going to have create decoder, decode and delete. This all. So you call once create decoder, you call delete once, and then call decode, decode, decode for every frame. You keep giving frame, it will take the bit stream, decode it, and give you the YU output. Very simple. So to showcase this, we used to develop simple application where user will give an input as a bin file. Okay, user doesn't know the bin file, and that bin file will have video streams. Marker will be put there so that we know which frame ends where. We used to read the frames, give it to decoder, decode it, and display. If we are able to play QVGA 30 FPS, every OEM wants us to work with us. They want to take our solution because QVGA 30 FPS was a luxury to play. Your display itself was not having QVGA. So when there was one OEM which was new OEM, and if they become very big, they started with mobile phone on Windows Mobile. That is where they started with. And we were also a startup company, so we had a partners with them, and we gave them our codec. They saw our user interface and said, no, we don't want this user interface. We have a very good team, and you just give us APIs, and we will able to handle it. We gave them the API, create, decode, and delete. Then when the engineering team saw this API, they said, no, hold on. We want APIs like play, pause, stop, fast forward, rewind. Where are these APIs? I said, no, you get create, decode, delete, and you have to develop these APIs because this is what is taking bit stream to play. They said, no, we don't know how to do it. And challenge is that you have 200 megahertz processor. So you cannot have only single core, you cannot have multi-core, you have to do audio, video. So we started developing with rudimentary framework. And why we need to develop a framework? Because first thing is that you need to parse the file, then you need to decode it, then render the audio, render the video. This has to be done with the synchronizer. So your first problem statement is to play the file 30 FPS, which it can be QC size, QVGA size. According to progress of processor, resolution increased, but the problem statement remains same. And then you should be able to control it to pause, stop, fast pause, rewind. Now, we developed complete framework which was able to do this. And in doing this, it was very challenging. Trust me, it's low-end device, low footprint, plus achieving audio video sync is the most challenging part of any multimedia framework. You start from there. If you have to develop anything from scratch, your first problem that will hit is this. Then we gave it to the customer. They started using it. Again, they come back for the camera. The camera also, you give that pause, resume, take picture. Now, if you see taking a picture that time, 1 megapixel picture, you can take in 1 second. And that is your performance that you are called innovator. If you can take 1 megapixel image in 1 second. 1 megapixel image, if you see, we were not having shared memory to transport the raw data from the ARM to DSP of 1 megapixel. We have to do in chunk of 128K. And that time we started doing the slicing of JPEG encoding. Basically take from some part of the row, give it to the encoder, it will encode it, give the back encoded bit stream in the same buffer and do this. So second challenge that comes is the buffer management in any framework. First challenge is if you do the lips audio video sync is your thing. Second thing is the buffer management. You should be able to transport the buffer with very low memory usage, like not mem copies and other things. So that is where the challenge comes. And zero copy effect. And this is what the frameworks of today has achieved it. And that time it was real challenge to achieve this. So we did this first thing with the QVGA playback. Now the framework has to support multiple file formats. You have AVI file format, 3GP, MP4, RM file, so many file formats. Now there's why there are so many file formats, why there are so many codecs, all these are standard, more practical problems. Some formats solve some problems solve some other problems, right? So all these file formats are supported. So we did start adding first one with the 3GP, then you add this codec, that codec, keep on progressing. The framework becomes slowly, it will become very, very tight couple. And that is where the another challenge which comes for the framework is that the framework has to be generic. It should be plug and play. You can put something inside. Now, Windows Mobile, we are developing this. We had almost 80 to 90% market share doing this. Our framework, our codec, gone into market. Now, Microsoft came up and said that we can play the video on my player. You don't need to have your another player. Why you have to develop another player? You can play in my player itself. Now your player is fine, but then challenge happens that how can you go back and take my codec, take my all these integrated? That is where direct show filter came. If you look into direct show filter, you'll find that all the frameworks in the market, they're almost offshoot of that thought process. So you have a framework which you have a given APIs, the APIs application can use it. Then you will have plugins or elements, whatever you say. Now these plugins, if they can be done at the runtime, then your framework is better. If it can be done only static, that is a complex. Every time you have to rebuild the application and other things. So Microsoft has a framework called COM, Components of Interest Model, which they use for all these pluggable things. So using COM, they have done a framework called direct show filters, where you can write the filters and you have input pin, output pins. Through the pins you can negotiate, and those things same in the GStreamer becomes element. You have pads they get connected, negotiated. All such things happen on the framework side. So once we have that, we started integrating our codec inside it. We have to write the filters. We develop the filters. The moment we develop the filters, added it to this filter, our performance reduced by 50%. So 30 FPS in my framework, 15 FPS in this filter framework. Now you go back and optimize it, and it took 6 months time to go back and find out where it is problem, what is happening, each frame by frame tuning, all such things. Low edge device will have all those challenges to find it out. We achieved that problem. Once that problem solved, then customer came back and said that, you know what, can you go back and play RM files? So RM has its own SDK. Now RM, what it gave is that, see, any file that you are playing, the customer experience that you should not have buffering, you should not delay, and you should have lip sync. These are the expectation of any playback that happens. Then we got to know that RM, to achieve this, they were saying that we are very low bandwidth, you can do from network. That time, very few formats were there which were supporting network playback, and RM was one things. And then we found out that they are doing pre-rolling. So if your processor is low end and you would like if your network issues are there, you will start taking the pre-rolling, take some 3 seconds, 4 seconds ahead that user will not know, and then you start playing so that buffering doesn't happen. And 2.5G, 3G was coming, and everybody wanted to have some set of playback through network, either through MMS or through whatever, there are different things. So that is where another problem statement comes, that can you go back and play things on the network streaming. Now, network streaming at 2.5G or 3G network, the biggest challenge was your bandwidth. You have now problem where buffers are not coming on time, so the buffer drops back. Then you have to do jitter buffer management. You have to handle frames that is coming. Order can be different. You have to go back and do error concealment more in the codec. All such challenges comes in the network streaming whenever you start doing this. Now, the people they started saying that no, it is not that good. And Apple was working parallelly to bring all these iTunes, and their quality was good, their effect was good. Then what to do? That is where it came that can we do adaptive streaming? Like you can find out what is the capability of the device. Device can publish that I have 2.5G, 3G, and you go back from the server side, you control the quality. Either you can go back, change the bit rate, you can change the frame rate, and you can do both, either according to this one. This is what you can find out today also. YouTube, if your data rate is low, it will go back to low quality, then you have to go back and for the high quality. That is what is happening. Third level of push that came is that now people are taking video capture and they want to do transfer over the network. Your playing side was getting fixed, but now from the capture side, it has to be done. This problem statement was again, the problem that I want to have as low latency as possible. Whenever my video is capturing, today you can see that it's real time, you're able to see me. But can you do this on the mobile, from mobile device? Can you capture and do this? This was a big problem statement. Quality has to be maintained. What to do? So then, you know, I told you, right? JPEG encoder, we used to do slicing, and JPEG decoder also slicing. Now, codec guys started working on, can we do a slice-based decoding encoding? We'll not do complete frame. We'll do part of frame, and then you do slice-based encoding, and that support came. We have to start taking that part. Network also, can you do packetization, which is slice-based? All such a problem statement. You can see in the slides that I have further. Now, other complexity. Chipset makers, they started coming with multi-cores. Till now, we had a problem with the core side. Now we have a problem with the multi-core. You can have 1 to DSP, you can have ISP, all such things. How can you go back and enable this? And all the codec was standard. You have your own API, other API, but then there was a framework needed for developing codec itself. And that is where OpenMax took a lead, and they came up with a framework where you can develop a codec running on multi-core. API remains same. The guys who are integrating the GStreamer or DSO filter, they don't need to worry about where the codec is running. And we have to put all our codecs again within the OpenMax, and this has solved the problems multi-core on the framework side. Right. Now, people say that, okay, how about running the codec itself on the cloud? You just take the stream, pass it to the cloud, and cloud will do. Then you can run the GStreamer in the backend. You can do that part so that your device is not loaded. But today, again, we are reversed back. We are coming back to the next generation where devices are becoming more powerful. And second thing is that the governments are pushing that you have to keep the privacy maintained. So you don't push the data to the cloud and then you do analytics, keep the data. You have to do more and more analysis on the device itself. So we developed Diamond Mukti system, which is running on the Android. You can put the Android phones and it can do. Now, this problem statement, playback side, my thought process is that frameworks doesn't need to evolve much because what is there you can do? You can do recommendation engine. You can go back and find out at which point I need to put the ad. You can have audio, video, and then text. You can have audio, video, location. You can add all those things. So on the playback side, it will more and more of the quality, more and more quality of the intelligence, like what is the user can recommend or what is the user wants, that is what you can put in. But on the encoder side, when it comes to capture, things are becoming day by day complex, and there are many problem statements that can be solved on the device side. Like suppose I have multiple cameras. I have cameras which is IR is coming, I have a camera where RAW is coming. Can I take both? Can I synchronize it? So whenever you have this problem, the multiple source, either from the network or from this one, your first problem comes, how can I synchronize this? What is the time taken? Then if it is network based, you have another problem statement. And these frameworks, GStreamer or other frameworks, have solved really nicely all this problem statement. Now, coming to today's status where you have artificial intelligence, like suppose I want a camera stream, and the camera, like one of the cases that we are presenting, there are 30 cameras on the network, and those cameras are connected to a network adapter. Network adapter has to get all the frames, all the camera input, and it has to do analytics. First, it has to display in a small resolution. It has to capture in the resolution, send in another resolution to the cloud. And third thing is that it has to keep running analytics to find out if there are objects, if lanes are not maintained, if somebody is doing some thing which is not for security. All such things has to be done. And these all complex things can be done within the GStreamer. And GStreamer as a plugin actually is open source, I'll tell you. So now NNA Streamer is a project which is from Samsung. They are doing adding neural networks where you can use all your TensorFlow and CAPTCHA and do the things, and OpenVINO. This part of adaptation or enhancement in GStreamer happen. Now, GStreamer is widely used multimedia framework, but it's not a multimedia framework. It is a data framework is what you can see. And as you can see, I put a tweet from GStreamer guys who says that physics literature Nobel winners, they have used GStreamer to do analysis of on their data to predict something, and they got it. They got the award. So you can take any data, and that is what the role of framework should be there. It should be diagnostic of the data. It should not be only limited to video or audio. So in case of GStreamer, the structure is very simple. You write a source or plugins, whatever plugins, you take data from one source, give it to other guys. The other guys process, gives the output, gives to other guys. Now all the pipelines, you can make it very simple to complex pipeline. You have to synchronize those pipelines also. All such things you have to take care. So GStreamer is winning. Why it is winning? It's open source. There are a lot of support. People, you can contribute your own plugins. From bad to ugly to good, or whatever plugins is there. So you can start with something which people can use it. It is a cross-platform. You can take any platform. If you're making a device which has very low footprint and you want to adopt a GStreamer, you can go back and trim the GStreamer up to taking only 2 megabytes of or 3 megabytes of footprints. These are the type of benefit that you get. It is C++ based, easy to program, lot of APIs, lot of features that is there, lot of community support is there. So that is why we use it. But if you want to take a decision that should I go back and develop my own framework, should I take the GStreamer, or do I need to get from the platform that is giving? It all depends on what you want to support. You may be pushed, like we were pushed for the ISO filter to do it because Microsoft was saying that playback can happen and other guys were not ready to support to the playback, right? So coming back to multimedia, this is what GStreamer pipeline that you can see. It has a core framework, pipeline architectures, protocols it supports like a file-based HTTP, RTF, SP, all such things that it supports. Network streaming, again, it is a what we'll say is that adaptive or non-adaptive. I told you, if you can really change your video according to the bandwidth of the device that is supporting, slowly, I don't think this will be a big issue because we are going and getting more and more network bandwidths, adaptivity from 4G to 5G. This would be a non-problem to solve. Low latency, again, for the camera capture or network circuits, whatever you can do, slice-based camera capture, slice-based video encoding, slice-based decoding also has to be there. You can use hardware accelerated video encoding, decoding. Now FPGA chips are coming, which can do faster. You see this 1 megapixel image capture that time. Till today, we have 40 megapixel capture. You just give command from the sensor to ISP, everything is done, and you get a complete JPEG output. That is what enhancements that has happened. This is what a slice-based we have shown that how the capture encode and slice works. Basically, you take a frame and divide in the small slice, give the slice, dip the packetization also. The depacketization will take the slices, decode it, and then display will happen. In fact, display also is becoming like today. It is guaranteed that in 2003-2004 timeframe we were working, and TI came up with the chips where they came with a dual surface because display was taking more time for playback. We had to take YUV, convert to the RGB, from RGB to display it. So they came up with a surface where you can just transport the YUV and YUV will get attended. And that enhanced from QVGA, we could go to the VGA 30 FPS playback easily. So this is what display side, and already I have covered. And what are the things that is happening in the multimedia frameworks? Like I just told you, you have to support new codec format, Dolby, Atmos, DTS, quality of the multi-channel, like you can have 32 channel of audio output or 16 channel of audio output, new protocols, digital light management, that is going to be a big thing. And today also it is there. Latency optimization, supporting multiple source and things. Now coming back to the case study, what we did, Adish will speak about it and then we'll take the questions. Adish, you are on mute.
Yeah, thanks, Keshav. So Keshav has already explained like what is the need of the multimedia framework, what kind of changes multimedia frameworks have gone over the time, what are different kind of network streaming techniques. So I'm going to present here kind of one of the case study, basically where one of the customer, basically they wanted to have kind of AI assisted a smart security surveillance kind of a system, which can be used for the commercial applications. So commercial applications, when I say it could be used over the airports, it could be used over stations, malls, those kind of things. So this system basically is kind of very complex, which consists of multiple cameras, then network video recorders, digital video recorders, and with a centralized kind of web server to automate the monitoring process so that less and less manual intervention is needed. So to provide such kind of a solution, basically what we did is basically we provided a kind of a matrix display which can support up to 32 channels of the live view. So just imagine basically you have like up to 32 cameras, IP cameras in a network video recorder kind of a system. So first of all, basically what you have to do, you have to find out how many cameras are there in the system. And for that, basically Onview Forum came up with a standard basically which tells how the IP devices are going to communicate with each other in a surveillance system. So using this Onview scanner, basically, first of all, you will identify what all or how many cameras are there. Then you can configure those cameras and to support different kind of properties. For example, resolution can be controlled, encoding profile can be controlled. So once you have configured all these cameras, so typically the IP camera provides you the stream over the RTSP. So considering there are 32 cameras, so you are going to have 32 RTSP client sessions running on the device. And with each device, considering I'm to say you are getting one feed from one camera, and after you decode the RTSP stream, so you are going to have kind of the 3 different sub pipelines. So one of the pipeline basically it will be kind of a live view. And before doing the live view, you may have to rescale the video based on the kind of display configuration what you have. Then the second feed is going to be for the analytics. So there you can have the motion detection, object detection. For example, if you are using this kind of a system on airports where you have to monitor nobody's entering into the exit lanes. So you can have like kind of video analytics, and you can have some kind of alarm basically if somebody is entering into the exit lane. So again, when you are playing such kind of alarm on the device, you need to have a separate pipeline to do that playback. And the third feed is basically for the recording, whatever you are capturing, basically you are recording. If later you want to review basically what all happened wherever you are monitoring the things. So considering like 32 pipelines for the 32 cameras, and then each pipeline will have 3 kind of sub pipelines, you are having 96 pipelines running on a single system. And without having a robust framework, building this kind of a system, is kind of a nightmare. Basically, you cannot have this kind of system developed. And apart from what are the use cases I mentioned within the system, so what are the recorded files are there, you may want to play these recorded files. And for that, you have to host a kind of RTSP server on the same system. So when you develop this kind of a complex system, so you have to keep in mind a few things. So one of the things is scalability. For example, if currently you have the support for 16 cameras and later you want to have the support for 32 cameras, so the system should be scalable. Then second part is like if you want to add some kind of a new feature, so how easy it is to add the new features. For example, if you are using the vendor, video analytics from one vendor now, and later you want to move to use some other library basically for different kind of video analytics. So how easy it is to integrate basically new such kind of features. So right now you may have the support for the RTSP server, later you want to do the HLS streaming. So how easily you can do that. And third is basically when you have such kind of system, you are going to have very kind of complex application running on the system, though at the same time the usage of the application should be very simple. So what kind of API is basically the underlying framework which provides for the application developer, that really matters a lot. So in all those terms, basically considering the GStreamers ecosystem, you have a lot of plugins, you have the support for all the streaming protocols, and kind of additions basically are being done to the GStreamer framework from the open source community. So that way it makes the developer's life quite simple using such kind of a robust framework. So now coming to the challenges basically what we have faced in this kind of project, one of the major challenge basically is synchronization among the different sources. So you have like a lot of cameras, so the live feed basically has to go on all the metrics display simultaneously. Then if somebody wants to see some recorded video, basically that has to be done instantly without much latency. So latency definitely plays a kind of very critical role, and you have to do different kind of you have to do some different kind of tunings basically. For example, if you are playing, you have the 4 megapixel 32 cameras, so you may have to reduce the resolution of some of the cameras to basically to reduce the latency based on the need what you have for the underlying system. And definitely you have to reduce more and more onto some MEM copies and use the underlying memory and the CPU judiciously so that these kind of requirements can be met. Yeah, that's all, Keshav.
So that was quick from our side. We can take the questions. One of the questions that has been asked, or you want to, Ankit?
Sure. Thank you so much, Mr. Keshav Karnakar and Mr. Adish, for a very enlightening talk today. And so this is a mutual, like, lockstep development that we see. The hardware develops, and then the software and the codec and everything develops. So, like, when there was high-speed broadband, and then you still were on the VGA or SVGA, so you would ask, like, what content would you use? So then came like a 3G kind of era, and people were asking, why should I buy a mobile phone with 3G? 2G works fine for me. I can call, I can message, everything is good. So then came the era of video streaming, and they said, like, 3G is not sufficient. So yes, like, you develop things, and then we can develop the hardware to use it. So let's come to some of the questions that are there for you. And one of the questions here is, like, what kind of innovation is possible from the framework side for a connected device kind of scenario? How do you see the evolution of the framework in a connected device scenario?
Adish, you want to take it? See, connected device scenario, like, we have to understand the use case, but if you take car dashboard, can we take our mobile phone connected to the car dashboard? If that is what two devices are getting connected, it can be connected over USB or it can be connected over Ethernet. And then if you see, there are frameworks that is getting developed. Like, you have Android Auto, CarPlay, Mirror Link, Mirror Sync, all those things are there. You can develop to do the mirroring of the device. Now, if this is the case, the framework, what it has developed is that can you take the data from the mobile and then do the processing at the dashboard side and render it, right? Or if it is just a screen sharing, you can do the screen sharing and other things. Now, second thing that can be that, can we have cases where decoding happens in some other device, source comes from other device, right? Or render happens for this. These are also distributed networking can be done. And
or it could be actually no longer just the video. It could be various other things that are being streamed along.
Correct.
Other
Like
information.
map also can be, right? Map data can come from the other things. So if this is then in GStreamer, that is what the beauty of GStreamer is. It has a plug and play, and you can write plugins. You can take input, like we are taking 32 camera source. You can take any type of source, and that type of source can be different. It can have audio, it can have video, it can have text. So frameworks has to be capable enough to extend it. So that is what it has to come. And people have to write, like, suppose tomorrow you have to put in the IR sensor. I have to write the sensor which can read the IR data and submit it. That is what my thought process. But I'm saying that a GStreamer is capable enough to do the distributed or to do the connected device things scenario also.
Sure, thank you. And there is another question for you, that is, latency, as you have already quite well elaborated, is a key challenge in the current distributed network. And with so many devices, so what are your areas of suggestion? Like, how can latency be improved? Like, what are the focus areas that can be there where we can reduce the latency, especially for audio and video kind of scenarios?
Adish, you want to take it up?
Yeah. So one of the area basically where we can reduce the latency, for example, if you consider like Apple AirPlay 2 kind of where Apple had put the kind of very strict requirements for the latency on the audio side, like latency should be less than 10 milliseconds or 5 milliseconds. So one of the things basically we have to do is like kind of DSP offload for the decoding of the audio basically. So you can have kind of some specific DSPs basically which will do the decoding. At the same time, you have to take care of the buffering mechanism basically. So more is the buffering basically, like more is your latency going to increase. So you have to reduce the buffers. At the same time, you can have like sample rate basically, like more is the sampling rate. I'm saying though the quality will be good with the more sample rate, but reducing the sample rate basically that can optimize the latency to some extent.
Latency is like two-way sword. You can't have the quality and you can't have the latency both. Till you have like if there's network issues are there, or the processing unit is there. So you have to compromise one of them. Like in case of, we were doing the video conferencing, where we want to do transfer of the screen 1080p with less than 100 millisecond. So you have to do pre-rolling or keep something which is like start with 1 or 2 frames and then pick it up like that. We did a lot of, because you have to get early, right? So if initially, if 1 or 2 frame rate is low also, you are not getting that, what is it, ill effect, or not the bad effect that you are getting it. But then pick it up with the frame rate that is what you can do. So a lot of tricks. Quality is one thing that you can compromise. You can compromise the frame rate. According to the network, you have to define that, is it the network problem or it is a processing problem? And then you have to tackle it accordingly.
Sure. And another sort of a naive question from my end is like, when you have a distributed network of different devices, so it all actually is also a matter of the clock that you are running. So if the different devices are assuming that they are maybe in sync, some are running ahead or behind. So how do you make sure that across, especially when you mentioned that you can handle 32 feeds in parallel, so each of the device would be running its own clock. So how do you make sure they are seeing the same time?
So basically, it's like though each of the device, I'm running with its own clock, but when you do the network streaming, so the moment you are getting the data over the device, so basically one of the primary things is that you have to reduce the latency. Considering there is like kind of latency is kind of very minimal for all the connected devices. So it's going to be in the sync that way.
So basically, you can have your own clock and give it to everybody, that please use this reference clock. And that's what initially when we were getting this problem, and then you have course also get problem with that timing. So we did like you get a reference clock and share it to everyone that this is what the clock follow it. That is the one thing that we did initial days for the maintaining the same thing.
Sure, really great. And it was nice listening to you, Mr. Karnakar and Mr. Adish. Thank you so much and we are glad to have you here. Over to you, Anvit.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for that very informative session on networking with GStreamer, Mr. Keshav Karnakar and Mr. Adish Kumar, our Path Partner. We are very glad to have you at VLD Summit 2021.
Thank you.